the iPad didn't work. Well, because a couple of times the iPad worked great. Then last time you could barely hear me. This time couldn't hear me at all. So I
Right.
went back to the phone, which worked every time.
Well, that's the best. I've
Never
seen.
works.
So, you know, you just got to go with it.
Good afternoon.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi,
Hi,
Linalda.
Linalda.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
You look like you're standing out front of the building. Pretty cool background.
Thank you. I'm trying something new today.
Oh, there's a rainbow.
Better than rain.
All right. We need one more to get going.
But it took almost a half an hour to do an update. Amazing. Well, I apologize. In the hotel, I was having a hard time. But
You were pretty resourceful there.
Yes.
I couldn't use the PC for both audio and visual. And once I realized that, then I turned off the audio, then went to the phone, but then I did not have Zoom downloaded on my town phone for some reason. So I had to wait and go through all the steps to download it. Then when I did, I realized when Commissioner Devitt mentioned that you could see my ceiling fan that, oh, I didn't turn off the
Visual.
video on the phone.
There
Oh,
you go.
audio. I mean, oh my gosh.
Whoops.
Hey, we're all here. Hi, Peggy.
Hey, guys, am I sideways or right? Okay.
Yep, we're good to go. Okay, at 1:32, we will begin the meeting. Let's call the roll, please.
Nelda.
Anelda. No,
He's
mute,
muted.
you're on mute.
You have to unmute.
She was just there. Although she-
Okay. Commissioner Shoemaker,
Present.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Commissioner Gossett Sideman,
Present?
Vice Mayor Bobby,
President.
Mayor Hillman,
Present.
Town Attorney Tercivia, isn't here yet? Town Manager Labadie,
Present.
thank you.
Okay, we'll stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the
To
flag
the flag of the United States of
of
America.
America and to the republic which
Who
stands
stands
one nation
one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, I call for an approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any presentations or proclamations? No? Are there any public comments?
There are no public comments today.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to announcements, board vacancies. There are 2 vacancies for Board of Adjustments and Appeals. There are several board meetings coming up. They're all listed on the agenda for anybody's review. There is a board action report which was included in the packet. There are no motions that were presented for our consideration, but if anybody wants to discuss it, it's there for discussion. Basically, it was a lengthy discussion about the 12 pilings that were in the North Marina at the Boca Island Beach Club and Marina. The decision was made not to extend the requested time element as a result of the change of attorneys. And the requirement was for them to either remove the pilings or cut the 12-foot pilings down to the required length. It's open for discussion if anybody wants to discuss it. If not, we will move on. Nobody?
No.
Oh.
Okay. We will then move on to ordinances and resolutions. There are none. Consent agenda, there are none. And on to unfinished business, which is the discussion of the strategic priorities. We were left with a significant amount of homework to do. Okay. And Marshall did a fine job on reorganizing the work that we did last time. And our job now is to merge everything back together. The first thing that we did, of course, was we identified everything that was already a work in progress. And Marshall put all of those, I kind of call it above the line. And I just took mine and kind of spread them out into the categories. And if we would attempt to merge those which are already in the commenced area. And I think we need to merge those because there may be some things that are not already started that might not be quite as important as things that have not begun already. So when we go to do the merge on these areas that have not begun, we might want to move something up on something that already has begun. And Marshall and I were chatting about how best to do this as a group. And we thought one thing that might be important is for Marshall to give us some guidance on those items that have already commenced about how long they'll take to finish. That's why you see in parentheses the number of days outstanding to get each of these initiatives completed. So if we look just for example on the one on page 12, I just picked that sheet of paper up first. Thank you for throwing it up. Well, I just look in the top left-hand corner. Install the ERP IT system. It shows 210 days.
Yeah.
There. So we can take a look at those and we can just see how many days each of these things take. So I guess maybe for the lack of anybody else jumping in just to get this stuff started, for those which are, again, above the line, those things that have already started, I kind of thought that the PBA collective bargaining agreement, which is only 30 days to completion, I threw that in as number one. And then right behind that, I threw in, along with that, the other bargaining, which is the FOP collective bargaining, which Marshall has down there as 60 days. But I'll tell you, that's probably 30 days also because we've come to agreement on that one. So I put those as 1 and 2, just because I know they're just about completed and obviously they have to get done and put behind us. Anybody disagree with those two thoughts?
No.
Nope, perfect.
I
Okay, so-
thought that shorter timeframes should be prioritized before the others. Because 300 days, as an example, well, you got a lot of time to go forward. So we got to get some other stuff done in the meantime. So I totally agree.
Okay, So if we're on that, we can kind of make those 1 and 2, and they kind of come off our list. So thank you. Well done, Teresa. All right, so now we're looking for what we think is now the next highest priority of those items that remain, again, in the above the line. I've been doing a lot of talking. Who thinks is next? What would be the next highest priority?
All right. Question I have is, why does it take 210 days to install the ERP IT system?
Data conversion.
Okay, which means then that has to be ongoing. So then I would say the water and sewer study should be next.
I agree. Followed by the ERP system.
Okay,
Yes,
okay with the water and sewer study as the third?
Yes.
yes.
Okay,
Great.
done. Okay, next.
There's only one left, right? The communication.
Well, no, you've got all of them, all the way across.
Oh, and I thought they were above the line only.
All of the ones that are above the line.
I see.
Called commenced.
For example, we have the fire rescue. I put fire rescue and study the alternative fire rescue services. I combine those two. Although they're listed separately, I see them running together.
Okay,
Yeah.
Question is, is that more important than the install the ERP system? Although the ERP system kind of runs for, 200 days, but I kind of thought that should be a pretty high priority.
Yeah.
Mayor, one quick question. Are these priorities for the commission or are these priorities for the commission and staff? Because a bunch of these probably don't require anything from the commission going forward, like the installing of the new software, right?
Yeah,
But
they are
obviously
not,
the fire has a lot for us to do.
yeah, this is really not for the commission. This is really
Okay.
for the town. So it's all encompassing.
Got it. Okay.
So the question, like I had a question I vacillated on, is the fire rescue more important than crosswalk enhancement? And I
Yeah.
kind of went back and forth on
Yes.
which one is first,
Yeah.
which one is second. Now, obviously, many of these things will be worked on at the same time. So it's kind of cutting hairs as to which one goes first, which one goes second.
Right.
Can we do a tie for a three-way
Yeah, I
tie?
Yeah, I don't know that it really matters which one
Right,
we pick next, because Marshall's going to be working on both of them at the same time, and so will
Right.
some of us.
Yeah, it'll probably end up coming out sort of like in zones, like the high priority zone, the medium priority zone, and
You're absolutely right. No
it's going to be
question
a
about
while
it.
before we get to it zone.
Yep, and the stuff at the
Right.
bottom where you're going to be touching.
In a
So,
high priority zone, you got to have fire though. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I think everything we're talking about is high priority zone at the moment.
yeah, and look at the fire, the thing is though, the fire rescue is at least 180 days, crosswalks 120 days. I think the population wants to see these crosswalks when they get back in season. That's the only reason I put crosswalk ahead of fire rescue.
Makes
Well,
sense.
it is visible too, very much so.
Yeah.
That we're making.
So if we're
progress.
okay with that, I would throw crosswalk in and then fire rescue right behind it.
okay, so then crosswalk is 4 and fire rescue is 5?
I kind of lost count of the numbers, so whatever number it is, yeah.
If you look, in the lower right-hand corner, it's called the master list. So Teresa will move them over and you'll see them in the order you discussed them.
Okay,
So it kind of gives you kind of and then we black out the ones that we moved off. So you don't lose place here.
Yep, this is working out very nicely.
Except I can't see it.
3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we're on to 7. So if we look and see what's left on the above the line. I'd throw Milani Park in next.
Makes sense.
Okay. Would you throw Milani Park in before dealing with, well, that might not be above the line. I was thinking the FDOT 3R. So that may be below the line.
Yeah, you got to stay above the line still.
Okay,
Yeah, Milani Park would be above.
then I would do Milani Park.
Mayor,
Yes,
regarding Milani Park, because I know you've been on top of that, what is the earliest time frame that we would begin to see any kind of planning or work come across our desk from the county?
I think we could answer that after the meeting we have next month with Commissioner Weinroth and I forget the gentleman's name from Parks and Recs.
Oh, right,
Eric Call. Eric Call.
Paul, right.
So after that meeting, I could probably get some more info.
Okay, because it's just that with setting some priorities, there are different time frames for them, so we could prioritize something higher with a longer time frame, and then, for example, something lower with a shorter time frame. I'm just trying to balance that effect.
Yeah, well, the issue on Milani Park from our standpoint,
Will come up next week,
we have
next
to get
month.
ahead of the curve on their planning.
Sure.
That's all.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okey doke. Thank you. Thank you for that input.
Sure. I don't know, I'm kind of up for grabs on the rest of them. Anybody want to throw something out?
Well, maintaining the participation in the South Coastal Resiliency, we're going
Oh,
to do
yeah.
that anyway. So it doesn't matter where you put it, it's going to be done.
Yeah, so let's put that one in. Oh, excuse me, I had the communications plan before that.
Okay. Sure.
I
And
think the
then I
community.
had, then I had the South Palm Beach
Yeah, county,
coastal, and then I had the resilience
yeah,
partnership after that.
I'm fine with that.
And I think that takes care of all of them, does it not?
Yeah, that's it.
We missed, there's a few in public infrastructure and resiliency. The sanitary sewer and the capital program.
Oh,
Oh, right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where do we want to put those?
Last two?
Okay,
well, except the sewer evaluation is being done right now, so
Right.
I wouldn't put it last.
we missed that entirely, huh?
Yes.
Well, that's a biggie.
I mean, because if that is going to require a big layout of money, we're gonna have to send it to the public. We're gonna have to do a referendum to be able to do it. So we need to get working on that.
That should be number 3.
Okay. Okay,
Makes sense.
Good, then everything else moves down.
mm-hmm,
We agree?
sure.
Agreed.
Teresa's having trouble getting it in.
Teresa,
Come on, you were doing great until we screwed you up. That's our fault. Yay,
So, well,
we know the rest.
And where do we want to put the ERP system? Because that's not on there. Is that the very last one
oh no,
in the capital program?
I thought we put it up
Oh,
higher.
we put those pretty high. Yeah, I thought we did.
Yeah,
that.
that's a priority.
Yeah, we had
I
discussed that, did
thought
we not?
that was put in at 6 or 7.
Yeah,
After the fire stuff. So number 7 should be the ERP.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
right after fire.
yep, I agree.
How do you want to do the rest below?
Okay, once we get that finished, then we'll go on to merging all of the plan stuff. And it'll be done, you know, in the same process we just did these. We'll wait till Teresia's ready. Now, the way we go about this is, excuse me, we have to take on each of the 4 categories, the top item gets compared to the top item on each of the 4. Once we take the top item off of one of them, that disappears, and then you're measuring the top item on the remaining 4. You follow me?
Yep.
What we're doing is comparing the top item on each. Okay, so it's a little easier than what we just did.
So as an example, number 2, maintain and refine the 5-year financial forecast model. As I look at public infrastructure and resiliency, we've already discussed that.
Yeah, so for example, we'll be looking at draft right of way,
The geographic information system,
implement the geographic information systems,
right?
beach nourishment, and where's the other one?
Aging, underbuilt infrastructure.
Wait, I would keep emerging issues off of your listing. That's just something that's out on the horizon. So they're not really specific projects. They're just issues that will affect potentially our ranking and order over time.
So it's drafting right away ordinance.
Yeah, those would be the number 2s.
Yeah, it's maintain and refine the 5-year financial forecast, draft right of way, beach nourishment, and implement geographic information systems. Which of those 4 do you believe is the most critical?
I have a question. What's geographic information system?
It's a computer programming system that allows us to digitize all infrastructure and land-based data into a mapping system for, it helps us plan, maintain, communicate off of a mapping system for all of our infrastructure, roads, condos, other types of issues that we may find. So we were kind of getting started it, but we're just trying to make it robust and more useful. So in the public infrastructure, it's good to have all of your infrastructure mapped, and then you can tie the as-built plans to the mapping system, so we could jump right into GIS and have real-time data with everything that's in the ground. Any other types of data we find value. So it's just it's a computer programming system. ArcGIS is what we use, and we're just trying to create the shape files. So it's kind of more of a programming side of things.
So as I understand it, we have a map of the town and it would show our sewage system after we've had the study. It would show our water system and the pump stations and all the rest. And it would show other infrastructure that we have. Literally one or however many maps that integrates all of it into a set of documents that you can plan from and manage. Correct?
Correct.
Would it show things like manhole covers
Yep.
and
Fire hydrants.
and
All the
the
infrastructure.
sewer hookups at the different buildings?
Where the valves are located, all that stuff. So it's especially helpful in time once we build it to, if there's ever emergency rescue or a police call, we could be in the field with our laptops and bring up, the building plans. Once we get those, we can digitize those. And then when you're there, you can just hit a button and all the plans come up wherever you are. And it's geo-referenced to a location, a long latitude area, right onto a map.
So it's really very good.
No,
Yeah,
it's
Now that I heard more about it, I'm going to make them a little more important in my thinking.
Yeah. It's especially important actually for police and fire, as well as
Yes.
for our highway department.
Yep. One thing is the draft, the right of way. That is unbeknownst to us when we did this last time, that was already started to work on, because obviously we're going to talk about it later in today's meeting. So Ingrid was already working on it. Okay, so we know what we're doing. We've got.
So I vote for the financial forecast model still being number 2.
Well, we need a number 1.
That's number 1.
the number 1 of the number 2s.
Okay, I had that very high, but I thought that the right of way should be number 1.
Isn't it really in process? I mean,
It is in process. And in fact, we're going to be talking about that as an ordinance after we complete this.
Mayor?
Be in work. Yeah, Peg.
Yeah, I have to honestly say, I think we need to prioritize at a high place the beach nourishment projects, the dune, the management, and also not forget about the removal of our offshore sands. Because if we had our residents sitting at our meeting, I think that those, especially those on the ocean side and those who've been very active writing letters, I think they would be very anxious and very happy to have this as a priority, because the offshore engineers and the cities can say, oh, we're not coming back for a while, maybe 5 years, but maybe not. It's an open permit. And I think we need to acknowledge that and maybe still reconsider, which we had been working toward, hiring a one-time attorney to give us an opinion. I would hate to have this sort of low on our list and then have it hit us in our face if they start chugging in here in November, or if we get a big storm and have the residents say, hey, what happened? That's
Peggy,
my,
the
Okay,
one
we
problem with
now
that,
we've got three opinions, so let's move on.
the sand is not ours.
I know that. I'm
So
aware of
don't
that,
say
Evelyn.
that our sand off, it's not ours.
Okay,
We
I'll
have
rephrase that. as
no
the state's
rights to
offshore.
it.
I understand that, but we were working toward getting a one-time opinion. I just think it still has to be kept as a possibility in the event that the removal ships return.
Well, I understand that, but I will tell you, analyzing this as a lawsuit, it's a
No, no.
loser.
I'm not saying lawsuit. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it should still be kept as a priority.
of
I
course.
think the residents would appreciate that.
And I don't think there's any rejection of the idea of making it no priority. It is a priority in my view, but at the same time, when we say nourishment, that's a bit misleading because to me, we're not going to nourish the beaches. That is, replace it with sand. What we are going to do, I think, is that we're going to look at how we can restore the dunes.
Right.
And related is Milani Park, but it's really more about dune restoration.
I understand. It's,
That is still a priority, but on this list, which is what we're trying to resolve, is that more important than, honestly, as I look at this, and I'm gonna go back up to the strategic budget process, or is it more important than, the GIS system?
well, I don't know. That's for the five of us to note. I'm just pointing out that it's still a priority higher than we might rate it in the eyes of many residents. That's my point.
Okay, well, I would vote for the GIS system being number, then what, is it 2 or 3? And then we can look at it from there.
Okay. Greg, your thoughts on number 1 and 2?
I'm fine with what John just said. I mean, I'd actually walk it back one step further than where John walked it. Nourishment is a recommendation. Nourishment is not a demand.
Right.
Dunes are private property. Full stop. So there is no, you need to do this on your dunes. There is a, would you please do this, or would you please consider doing this? So I don't even know if those two should maybe be broken apart. I'm not sure. Maybe they should stay together. But again, nourishment is an encouragement. It's not a demand. We can certainly look into something if you want to try to work something with Boca for the sand, but you're full stop right. It's not our sand.
Right. I
So,
understand.
hence the reason why I don't have that one as quite as high as some of the other ones.
But it's not their sand either. So
It's the state
Well, but
sand,
right
which
now it
David
is.
can-
I'm just pointing out
Okay, what I would like to do, if we can move forward, there's no disagreement that the beach nourishment project and the dunes should be on our list. The only discussion is where on the list it belongs. So
Okay.
let's focus in on the top priorities. And then as we move through it, we'll see where it falls, okay?
Makes
Sure.
sense.
I think John and I were debating on 1 and 2, whether it be the right of way or the 5-year financial. I happen to have them back to back, so I don't know that it matters.
Right.
The fact that right of way is already being worked on, are we okay with right of way 1 and 5-year financial 2?
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so let's do that. And that crosses both of those off the list. And Teresa, if you would
Yep.
update us, please. Okay, so we are now looking at the next 2 that are down, which is implement online building permit, continue strategic budget process, and comparing that to the beach nourishment and undertake sanitary sewer collection system evaluation.
Mayor?
Yes,
Yes, I didn't understand why the online building permit, I thought we were pretty much halfway or more through that process already. Can I get a definition from Marshall as to what this is exactly?
absolutely. Marshall?
Sure. So I would probably say we're about 70% there. The reason being is we're switching systems with the new ERP. We're going to the BSNA system, which has a series of different modules, if you will, that we're going to put in place and how much effort into online. So, I mean, you could almost say it's ongoing, to be honest, and tie it up with the online if we want to kind of help reduce our list to a more manageable list. Because as you see, this master list is going to be quite a work plan for me. So we could just say that it's with the implement the ERP as the online building, if we want to say that, because it's going to be tied to that implementation.
Okay,
That
thank
helps
you.
kind of take one off the list, and it's kind of tied into the BSNA or the ERP system, which is in play. I could say that those are the same elements and maybe refine that definition in here.
Sure.
So are you suggesting we just remove it then?
Yep.
Okay,
And
let's just cross it
with
off.
the
Makes
ERP.
life easier.
Okay,
Thank you.
That was
And I'll
good
give a
call,
better
Peggy.
definition too there, so,
Okay,
Thank you very much.
yep.
so now we're comparing the next one down, which is the 2020 firm flood maps. Continue the strategic budget process.
Well, Marshall, would that, so kind of GIS mapping?
The flood maps, no, it's actual, we have to, it'll probably have some ordinance implications that we'll have to update and things of that nature. And there are some problems with some of the stormwater language we use throughout several points of the ordinance that we do need to clean up with it. So when we do that's why it says flood maps and ordinance, it's going to have an impact to folks where you're, it'll adjust the base flood elevations. It'll change, the 1 foot freeboard for, mechanicals and ductwork and electrical components. So we're going to there'll be some other changes that are with it. So it's not only just accepting the maps, but our ordinances have not reflected previous changes to the map. So we're going to have to do that in some order here.
Is anybody interested in going a little bit off the grid here and picking up A1 drainage and flooding issues?
Yes, sir, I would be.
yes.
I would
Probably
love
is
to
a higher
throw that in
priority.
here.
Yes, sir. I would also, because our representative had suggested us going back, depending on the outcome of COVID, and he had suggested reworking that as an appropriation because it was at one time a very high consideration in these state levels.
Excellent. Teresa, we didn't agree that number 4, that doesn't go on there. So A1A drainage becomes 4.
I would think that A1A drainage kind of works in with the right of way, because that's where most of the drainage issues is in that right of way area.
Well, it is, but they're really two distinct subjects. The right of way,
Yeah.
so that when utilities or anybody else comes in and wants to do work in our right of way, they have to first get the permits. Otherwise, right now, they're just showing up and digging.
Right, okay.
Okay,
Do we know where everything is in the right of way?
With GIS, we will.
yeah, I mean, they're both occupying the same space. That's true. Okay, where are we? We'll wait till she's finished here. Okay, we're good? Okay, I would suggest that the strategic budget process would be next.
Good idea.
And then I would follow that with charter review.
How important is the charter review?
Well, it's critical, and I'll give you one easy example. Right now, we are hindered with a $350,000 limit on anything that we can do before it has to go to a vote of the owners.
Right?
That's in our charter.
And so we would want to change that, is what you're suggesting.
Well, that dates back at least 11 years now. It might go back beyond that. I mean, Peggy, you're kind of the historian here. Do you know off the top of your head?
I think that has been in place for way longer than that. And there was an issue when Town Hall was renovated 7-8 years ago, which exceeded that amount. And it led to the residents saying, no, let's stay with the 350. So I think that a charter review is a great idea. And there are people still in town who served on the past charter review committee who possibly would be a help to put on a new committee. But
Yeah,
there are many other factors in it that need to be addressed in the charter.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to go through it again. You know, I haven't reviewed it in quite a while. But there
Yes,
are
sir.
things in there that are kind of outdated. I just
Yes,
used
sir.
one glaring example.
Right.
The limit should be tied to your operating budget, you know, some percentage thereof, or if it is a fixed amount, it should probably go up with the CPI or something.
Yes, sir. I believe the state requires a charter review every so many years. I don't have it in front of me, but maybe Marshall could check that out.
Yeah,
And
10 years sticks in my mind, Peg. I don't know if that's correct, but that's kind of what comes to mind right
Yeah.
away.
So we might want to,
Right.
sorry.
Sorry, Marshall.
Oh, it is. It's in your charter to review the charter. So we're due here shortly. I think within the
That's
next
what I'm saying.
year or
Right.
two, we have to do it. So.
Okay. I'm still in the same listing. My next one was establish the condo HOA commission partnership forums.
Mayor, does the
do it
create
right now,
fund
but-
balance guidelines, does that go with the strategic budget or is that a totally separate thing? I'm not really sure what that one was.
Would you say that again, please?
The create fund balance guidelines and financial benchmarking process, is that related at all to the strategic budget process? Or that's something different. I don't know what that item is. I forgot.
I think eventually it would be linked to the financial model a little bit. So we would know what our targets would be, unassigned reserves, or any other valuable benchmarks that the FAB kind of starts to flesh out. It's kind of our guideposts in the financial planning side of things.
Yeah, that came up when we were talking about, you were talking about the size of our
Right.
reserves, and then I chimed in about what our reserves should be used for, and we shouldn't be shy about using them. And then it just came to mind that we never really had a discussion or a document about what our reserves should be used for, and everybody kind of had their own thoughts on that. So I thought maybe we should actually establish some guidelines.
But should that be part of the strategic budget process or should it be a totally different item? That was my question.
I don't have an answer to that. I don't know. I guess we could combine them. Why not?
I don't know either, but they seem like they kind of go together, but what does everyone think?
I agree. It would make sense and it would pare down our list.
Well, it would pare
Yeah.
down the list. It would make the budget process, the strategic budget process itself a little fatter, but that's okay.
Okay.
I think from simplicity standpoint as well, it would make sense. Why not?
Yes, sir.
I agree. Good point, Vice Mayor.
So let's put that right behind it. I had it running next anyways.
Perfect.
Okay. Takes care of those two. I had the flood maps next. Anybody have anything before that?
Are we putting flood maps before or after charter review?
Charter review's already been done. That was done 3 before this.
Well, flood maps are important, so I would, at the very least, it's next, but
Yeah, we had charter review as number 6. That was, okay.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure where this belongs, but I wanted to throw it out to you all. Before 5-6 years ago, it was recommended to Bellito that the lakes should be surveyed because they are actually owned by the town of Highland Beach. And I think Marshall and I talked about this back in 2018. But I don't know if we still need to include that somewhere in one of these priorities as something that needs to be done. FDOT said it's the town's duty. There's no survey on record of the two Bellito lakes or Highland Beach lakes. Just happen to be in the center of Bellito.
Why would FDOT care about it? I missed that part.
It had to do with the permitting process and how complicated it was between FDOT, DEP. For example, the state owns the canal that rings the south end of town because it is technically the old Spanish River riverbed. And then it is owned by the state, the intercoastal is owned by the government feds, and the lakes by the town.
Okay, but why would people go to FDOT for permits to do something on the lake?
It was just noted that the town owned them and there was never a survey on file and they recommended one. Beyond
Okay.
that, that's all. I agree with you, Evelyn. I'm not sure why, but this was 5-6 years ago. So I'm just pointing it out as it was sort of unfinished business. Just wanted to see if it should be included somewhere.
Yeah, my suggestion is to just take it off the list entirely. And part of the reason is we're
Right.
already kind of addressing that down the road anyway. We were talking about getting Ingrid was gonna hire a consultant to get our marine rules to be closer to the surrounding.
Sure,
I would probably just leave it under that item.
that's
Good.
fine. I just wanted to raise awareness that it was still something that was lingering from years ago.
Okay, good.
Probably will fall under the other, the consultant.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Teresa, on page 11. Oh, you just got them in there, okay. So you got, and after that, you have create the fund balance guidelines. And then what?
Where are we putting the FDOT project design and construction? I mean, I guess that depends on timing too, right?
A little bit, yeah. I think we have a little more wiggle room with that one. When you're looking at competing priorities, if you need to find some space, that one could move back because their timeline is still a 3-4 year timeline. So we will be working on it, but it won't be as involved unless we decide to do something exotic, which I don't think is going to happen.
All right, then also, is there a big number that we could expect from making it a priority for improving recycling and waste reduction rates? Is that going to have a big benefit or is it just kind of routine?
Well, I mean, that's why it's an initiative. We would have to develop some strategies on how we want to approach that subject to get residents to increase those rates. So it's determined to be, for the community, a good thing to do. We just haven't defined what exactly that process will be. So it would involve some work on our end.
Okay, I'm lost with that. What could we do to increase the rates? Is this the rates that we pay to give? it
No.
Yeah.
Rate is, right now we might have 30% of the residents participating in the recycling program on a weekly basis. How would we go about that? We would, release a recycling education campaign to the residents on how they could do it or find ways to incentivize the activity. There's a whole bunch of strategies that could be deployed to educate the public to recycle more or change consumer habits to reduce the volume of waste that is produced. So all those things are good for the environment. We would just have to go through the process of determining what strategies we would use.
I would consider that a low priority on this
Yeah.
combined.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one I had was implement the 2020 firm flood maps.
Yes.
We okay with that?
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
Sure.
Then right after that, I had update the building administrative code section, 7th edition.
You know, can I make a point that in all of these actions, really, there's only one that speaks to our fire department, police department, given we're up to our ears with fire. And it's the officer wellness program. Now,
Right.
given we're not really doing anything else here beyond what's already in place for our police. And I know it doesn't affect others in the town, but it does affect the police. Is it unreasonable to put that up at a higher priority or next on the list? Because I don't think it's going to require a lot from us and maybe some money to implement, but to endorse it, I think is important.
Are you suggesting that we misranked it?
Well, as number 11,
Well, you're jumping over your rank. It's not that we can't do it. I'm just saying that you're going outside of the system you established, which we can.
yeah, I'm just, again, it's a point that since it's the only one for the police department, I'm looking at all the departments and boy, there's a lot of stuff going on here.
You got to remember, they just got a new contract.
Yeah,
I'm not opposed to it. It's not a big deal.
Mayor?
Yeah, sure, Peg.
Yes, I think Chief addressed this in part at a recent budget meeting.
You did.
And I
Yeah.
believe, I mean, I'm in agreement with John, and I don't think any one of the 5 of us would say no to making sure they have what they need in that respect. But number one, I'm not sure what the entire wellness program is. And number 2, I felt that the chief felt that he was in a good place with it. Maybe Marshall or Greg could expound on that. I don't want to look like we have them last on our list either. Doesn't appear really copacetic, but maybe Marshall, you could weigh in on that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the dollars are going to come from the police foundation, or they're buying most of the equipment and the like. There's some space activity. There's some indirect costs that fall back to us, but they're not significant. I mean, if everybody is agreeing to it, maybe we take it off, and that just continues to move as an initiative of the police department, and maybe doesn't warrant larger review under a priorities plan. You could.
That's a great idea.
Great
yeah,
idea.
I
Thank
like
you.
that because we endorse it, we support it, but on
Right.
the list of priorities is kind of outside our purview.
Yes, sir. I mean, if they,
Well done.
thank you. If Mayor, if I could just add, if they fall a little short, certainly they can address that issue with Marshall, and we can, he can work it out.
It's already off the list.
Great, thank you.
Well
Okay.
done. Okay, let's see. We just finished updating the building administrative.
Mayor, I should say,
Sir.
it's off the list, but not off our minds.
Right.
Okay, good. Good, John.
Okay. So now we're comparing complete salary tables to systematic update of the town ordinances, to collaborate with to Beach Nourishment to implement geographic information systems.
Okay.
By the way, I think we misranked complete salary table and job description update to develop community survey engagement process, but so be it.
Mayor,
Yes.
could we ask Marshall to weigh in on some of these
of course.
priorities from his position as to what he feels important as the guy in the quarterback seat there.
Jump in there, Marshall.
You guys are doing a good job so far. I wouldn't think I'm too far off, as I would think. Some of the ones that are remaining, we've received a lot of feedback about community survey and engagement process, but we really have never defined it. I think that might be something we want to move up the list a bit. And then I would think, I guess from my perspective, I have some concerns around, purchasing roles and responsibilities and human resource roles and responsibilities, because the organization, a critical part of a well-functioning organization, and that's been kind of ignored here for a long time. Those would be good ones to move over. Public record digitization frees up space, and that's important. And that's more of a budgetary thing. That number 11 where it says public record digitization and management process. And Nelda's got a process. We just got to be committed financially to pursue it, because when you send out these records for scanning, it does come with a cost. So we want to make sure that while it doesn't probably involve a lot of work on the commission's end, it does involve the commission's financial commitment. And then you still got some beach nourishment stuff. Code updates. I mean, you can pick it from there. I'm not really committed to one over the other. I think these are all important, unfortunately, but I think, getting to some of the HR roles and responsibilities, that community engagement process would probably be helpful, the survey stuff. We always talk about, let's survey the residents, and how do you really want to do it? How often, what approach? So that would be good to define and see what options exist and how we want to roll that out.
Okay, why don't we start working on the salary tables, job descriptions, and community survey? Let's do those two next.
Great.
Question, how can you do the fund balance and financial benchmarking process without having done the salary table and job description?
Salary table is something that it's a variation of a salary survey. When we really haven't formally discussed that and taken action. Last time we did that was in 2013. We've had conversations that some of the salary bands are probably a little bit outdated, and we want to take a look at that. So we need to come together to see how we want to do that. Something a more simplistic, straightforward process, but nonetheless, if we don't do it this year or the next, we're going to have to get to it. When the last time we really are surveying our salary ranges on 2013 numbers, next thing you know, we're going to be in 2022, 23, and we're 10 years behind. We may want to take a look at that.
So you wouldn't combine it with the financial benchmarking?
No.
Mm-mm. It would have a financial impact, potentially. It will. But
You basically know your salary ranges.
yeah.
Right.
Are we okay? John, you okay?
Yes.
Okay, I would suggest that we pick up the beach nourishment projects and permitting evaluation, but I would like the subject be, you're not gonna be happy with me, so I'll say it up front, that this is really a subject of dune management and preservation, not a subject of permitting.
Totally agree, Mayor.
Good suggestion.
Delete the word nourishment.
Go ahead, John.
I would say delete the word nourishment. I totally agree. It's all about dune restoration and enhancement programs that it's very important. I know if anything, we've gotten resident input. I've recently gotten quite a bit of resident input. So it's of big interest. And we have the issue right now in the south end where the pictures I've received show some serious erosion of late. So Jeffrey Kleiman has been very much on top of this as one of several who are most interested in that. But again, it's not about the sand, it's about protecting the dune for the town.
If I may also, we had a lengthy discussion at the last session about this gentleman that lives in the community. We were going to look at his credentials. look at him possibly surveying the
Right.
dune. The board was recommending that we look at him. We follow, we reviewed their recommendations to see if we can't administer or help administer, working with the owners of the beachfront property on how they can preserve their dunes, see which ones require help, et cetera, et cetera. That's an effort that we certainly can get involved with, that can not just help the individual owners, but can help the town. The beaches themselves, I mean, we all know, I'm not going to go through the whole thing about private beaches, et cetera. But the whole subject of the offshore sand is just one that we just can't win on. It just is, I mean, we went through that process. I just don't see us getting involved in that all over again. So if we're comfortable with going after the dune program, I think we should put that in as the next subject.
I agree.
Okay?
Mhm. Yeah, I would do that.
Okay. What follows that then would be, so let's take that one off. So now we're down to define the purchasing process, systematic update of the town codes, improve recycling, and implement the geographic information system. Kind of up for grabs. Who's got a thought? Nobody has an idea? I would suggest the update of the town codes.
Okay, how would you administer that? Should we have a committee to look at it, or should we go through it one by one? I mean, I don't
How about
know.
code
how-
enforcement board?
Greater minds than mine will figure that out. I don't know.
Well, again, as we look at this, when you see these lists, when there's only so much time to deploy and resources to deploy, the list will direct what goes first, if you will. So we know we need to address the codes, but at the same time, we could say this part of the code, like right of way, is more important because of the other storm, some drainage issues and things of that nature. So we do have to take a look of it, there's some pretty outdated sections we've never imposed or enforced that we should probably get to, but is it as important as all these other things? So on that list, we know we need to do it. How we do it, I'm not quite sure. So knowing that it's potentially number 13 of our planned projects, we will get to it over the next year and come up with some suggestions internally.
Yeah. It's a housekeeping thing. Maybe you categorize it by date or by segment, by category of code, then by date. I don't know, Marshall. will figure
Yeah, we could come up with something like that. It's a good way to do it.
I agree with
The
Marshall.
question is that more important than, define purchasing, AR process, roles, responsibilities? I don't know, maybe it is not more important. Maybe we should define purchasing first and human resources first and leave that.
Perhaps some of those are joined together, Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask Marshall because he would be the one that would be doing it.
I mean, for example, if you're updating the purchasing policies, you should update your purchasing code at the same time. The two should mesh together. So that may be a way to tackle some of these where you combine the code update with whatever policy update, like purchasing is a good example.
And then there's also a management component to all this when we have the new ERP system that's going to change how we process stuff. So it's like a three-way project as far as handling all of it and defining it and having clear roles, who does what when, then also how we do it, what method of procurement do we do, and make sure the code's tied to it. So that's pretty big. HR personnel roles and responsibilities are always a little bit ambiguous. So we're trying to clean those up a bit and kind of define who's going to be handling those roles as we move forward. So those are pretty important ones too. So I don't know if I could underscore that, but those need to be addressed.
Back to you, Glenn. Which ones do you think we can combine again?
Well, for example, purchasing, when you're talking about, looking at purchasing policies, there's also a purchasing code. So those would seem to go hand in hand. You wouldn't want to update the policy that conflicted with the code. And again, I think as you go through the different priorities, anytime you have a policy that is referencing a code, you might as well take that time to stop and look at that section of the code. Because you're right, it's housekeeping, but it's the kind of housekeeping that usually gets left and, the dust builds up in the corner until there's really a problem. So I like the idea that there might be some systematic approach at looking at the different code provisions.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. So you want to put those two together then, Marshall?
Which ones?
It's basically the code and purchasing, AR, process, roles, responsibilities.
Well, what about the
When you're
building?
looking at that section of the code would be combined with your defining of purchasing an AR process.
I still think they're all three separate, even though they might blend together from time to time. I think they're going to be each three separate types of projects that will be tasked to certain employees to kind of run with and define. Purchasing will involve a couple of us, myself, Matt, maybe the management analyst in the finance department will kind of tackle that one. Teresa and I, maybe with the help of Linelda, might tackle HR, and then outdated ordinances. I'm probably going to leave that to Ingrid to kind of define what is our best approach to handling the whole ordinance book as to how, annually do we sections and go through it, or does she do it and make recommendations quarterly on a new section that needs to be adjusted? There's a whole bunch of different things that could come out of it, or methods on how to handle it. So,
But Tom.
pretty separate.
Tom Manager, doesn't it though, it's three action items in the code management bucket? No?
There's some of it's management more so than code.
Right.
So
Code and management.
All right, it was worth a shot. Okay.
Well,
All right, so the only question then is, in your opinion, Marshall, do you want to put the updating and review of the old codes before or after the review of human resources and purchasing, or do you want?
after. So I would purchasing, I'd go purchasing, HR, then code. If you're
Okay, you got that, Teresa?
and when you say HR, you're not talking the update of the building admin code section.
No, that's more like human resources. Everything that we do with how do we handle employee issues for the most part. So, because we don't have an HR person per se. So who is responsible for questions on the contract? Who's responsible for benefit coordination? Who's responsible for ensuring statutory rules that change to employment are followed? And there's a whole bunch of that stuff that kind of, it's getting done, but we need to define more clearly who's responsible for it.
So that's a team productivity issue. And to me, that was important and maybe next at 16.
Mhm.
Okay, then we only have, on my record anyways, we've got 3 to go. So we're only comparing now the public record digitization versus implement the geographic information system. I think the GIS is probably first, then the RRR project, then public record digitization.
I'm all right with that.
Mhm.
We all okay?
Me too.
Yes.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yes,
is the
Peggy.
public, yes, sir, is the public record digitization, public record,
That's a mouthful, isn't
I haven't had enough coffee.
it?
Need another cup of coffee. is that a matter of a budget item only? Or is there management and Linelda's actual time involvement necessary for this?
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah,
And how
Also,
critical?
just,
ahead.
just didn't seem to be much of a priority. Eventually,
Sure.
we have to do it.
Right.
And then the last thing of all is the improved recycling and waste reduction rates.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
so if we wanted with the public record digitization and management,
Thank
we
you.
can make that a clerk's office priority and project. It's just that it becomes a budgetary commitment on our end, kind of like the officer wellness program where we threw it to the police department to maintain that and keep it on the radar screen as a departmental task. We could do the same thing because as
Sure.
we could probably do that because in a sense we have to do it and we are doing it. It's just some of the cost is really where the commitment needs to come from the commission to make sure we budget for it.
Right. Now, what happens here is obviously, excuse me, now that this is completed, Marshall divides all these projects up amongst his staff. So that doesn't mean that the 12th thing on our list isn't being worked on at the same time that the 6th thing on the list is being worked. Okay? While number 10 is waiting. Because it gets divided up amongst his different operations. Okay? Just so people understand.
With the record digitalization, is that something that could be project specific that we could hire a temp to deal with?
Of course. Well, I shouldn't say it that quickly. I don't know the details of it. Some of these
You
things
guys-
might get farmed out.
You're very astute because I think that's going to become part of it. If we really want to push this project over the finish line, we're probably going to need to bring in a temp for a period of time to go through these boxes and boxes and boxes of files to get it to the scanner, bring it back. We have to do some record keeping before it goes out so we know what's been left. So there probably is a little bit of that, which we would have to bring to you. So, I mean, maybe you leave it on there and that could be something that's simply taken care of, or we just handle simply in one of our agendas, like I'm going to bring a temp in for 100 hours to move this project forward. And then you guys could say thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing.
Because otherwise it's going to fall behind
Yep,
what
absolutely.
people have to do on a regular basis. It's kind of, gee, if you're not busy, do some of this. Well, they're always busy.
Yeah.
You're right on. And that's why we put it on the list, that we want to make sure it stays on this list and it remains a focus in some fashion for us, because you're right. It'll end up being a room full of boxes. We just don't want that to continue to stack up. And when there's an easier way to get to a paperless or a up-to-date year-to-year kind of project. So
Yeah,
we need to get
what
to it.
what this also shows, though, is if we had made that a higher priority, and when Marshall starts to look over all this and says, geez, I can't get to that for another 5-6 months, that would then tell him he's got to go out and get somebody to do it because his staff is full. It also shows a pretty hefty, 32 items here. And if we want something done quickly, we're going to have to staff accordingly for it. If we're willing to wait, I don't know, this might be 2.5 years worth of work. Need some, if we can't wait 2.5 years to get all this done, we have to staff accordingly. If we can wait, fine. But that next month, something else is going to come up.
All right.
Or things going to get added to this list. But it's a work in progress, and at least we've got it all laid out now. We have some sense of priority, and the priorities will change over time. And some things will drop off, but at least now we've got it organized, which is great. And
So,
either, start laying this into a PERT chart or a GAT chart or something, so we can start to see it laid out and see what the critical path is, and it'll give them a management tool. Okay?
so would you like a motion?
I don't know. Do we need a motion for this?
What I would suggest, if we could, let me put this all together and bring back a final one in case you 3 hours from now, you're like, you know what, I really wish X. So let me put together a complete product. We'll bring it back to the next meeting to say, this is it, we'll accept it in this final form, and then we start working from it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, well done. Shall we move on?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, into new business, consideration of the new ordinance pertaining to right-of-way. Marshall?
So this project culminated out of a series of issues we've had over, I would say, the last year and a half, where we'll have somebody working in the right of way. We have no idea because they're not required to report to us. They may report, get a permit from FDOT, and then they come running through town, hit some infrastructure, break it. We're chasing to see who did it, or a whole crew shows up in the right of way. We have no idea who it is, what their timeline is, what they're putting in. And then also we've had other, incremental projects where swales disappear, structures or obstructions show up in the right of way, and we have no means to require permitting on it. So I was talking with Ingrid, and I said, we should start thinking about, we should put this on our radar screen. And being as efficient as she is, she came back with revised ordinance. So so kudos to her for staying right on it. So we have a right-of-way ordinance to kind of start to get to this. I also had her attach the process that we agreed to last year on how we do this. So staff is recommending, and we have recommended language to put in a right-of-way ordinance where the people would have to get permits. We haven't spent a lot of time reviewing it, thinking all the ins and outs, but we're coming forward asking for authorization from the commission to pursue it. Now with that, according to our flow chart, this would then eventually go to the planning board. It would make sense to go to the planning board for a couple of meetings to flesh out the final details, to ask those questions, and then to recommend something back to the commission for consideration, and then first reading and second reading. So following that model, you have where our heads are at as staff members. Would you like us to move forward?
I see Ingrid is here. Ingrid, is there anything you would like to add to this before we discuss it?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I was just going to say, obviously the proposed language speaks for itself. I'll be happy to address any questions that you might have. I did look at other municipal codes. I looked at the city of Boca Raton, looked at St. Augustine. So I pulled some of the language that they're using. Boca actually has more of a license, an annual license. And talking with staff, our utilities director and building official, we decided to go against like an annual license and go with an actual permit. I also want to say the town has pretty much, I think, been more reactive when we've had issues with construction or, in the public right of way. But on the same note, keep in mind that the town's construction site management handbook does talk about issues with the right-of-way. There's a provision in there about the contractors responsible for all off-site damage to roads and right-of-way. It also talks about a bond that's required for off-site damage in case there is any type of repair to the right-of-way. The construction manual also talks about that parking on the public right-of-way is prohibited on A1A, although a contractor can get an exception to that if they go through the Florida Department of Transportation. And then there's another provision in that construction manual which talks about, again, if you have a truck, that the contractor is responsible for any damage to the right-of-way. So it's not that, I guess from a more general perspective, that the right-of-way isn't discussed. Again, the staff has pre-construction meetings with contractors, and these issues are brought up. But of course, the right-of-way permit has a lot more teeth, right? And I think it would be a nice inclusion to the town code.
Okay,
I
thank you.
agree. I
Um,
think that if we have them apply for a permit, then you're not hunting down people because you've got their contact information when they apply for the permit.
No question about it.
Yeah, that's correct. And in the provisions, we're proposing, obviously, they'd have to provide a plan. They have to document where they're locating, where they're going to be doing some sort of improvement, even the type of equipment that they're going to be utilizing. So all these things are very important. There will be no guessing, right? It'll all be documented in the plan.
But also,
Kind of,
if we know when they're going to be doing things that are going to affect the traffic, we can let our citizens know that there's going to be an issue with traffic because X, Y, and Z is being done. And it should take 5 days, 2 days, whatever it is. But then people aren't surprised.
Right. What we're proposing here in the code is that road closures have to get an approval by the Public Works Director 7 days prior. So we should know 7 days prior, and then we could, upload it on the website or whichever way is the best to inform the public. I would think the website.
But sometimes it's not even necessarily a road closure. It's if they kind of block off half of one of the lanes and people are scooting around.
Right.
And
Yeah,
you
that
should
would have
know
to
that
be-
that's going to happen.
Right. That would have to be documented on the plan, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anything else, Ev?
No, I think this is a good idea because we don't want to wind up like Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, right. That was an interesting article. Thank you. Very timely.
Yes, we don't want them digging into our water mains. And part of the problem there was all of the subcontractors. There was a contract given out and they subbed it and subbed it and subbed it till the people doing the actual work had no idea what they were doing.
Well, that's what happens in the buildings also. It's always the case. Okay, John, over to you.
Yes. Just two quick questions. Having read the article as well, it occurred to me, do we have a plan or do we need to include the capability for an 811 line so that contractors can call us or anybody can call us when they shovel to the ground?
So they do that now. So if they ever do what they call for, loosely missed dig, so the 811 you call, we come out, mark our utilities, this and that. And this would also provide an elevated level of protection for us because they'll have to notify us. So Pat and his team can be out there when they're digging or this or that, or point shortcomings and the like. So we're already in the system. This is just so we know exactly what they're doing. And also, I don't know that we've spoken to it enough, is, some of our drainage issues is because work's been done and no one's planned for how to accommodate drainage after the work is concluded. And there's an opportunity to ensure swales are put back in or are put in the first place. So
I was going to say that should be included in here because if you're going to work there and you're digging, then create a swale before you leave.
Right.
So maybe I missed it, but I went through all of this and I didn't see any reference to 811 notification.
We're already part of it, but I'll have Pat puts together some stuff for y'all to see that and how we're included in the system.
So second question, I don't know, and I don't know if we should, or even if we can, but I know it's done in other states. When we have construction along A1A that could block traffic or become a potential hazard, do the contractors have to pay for our police protection coverage?
No, they're on their own to do that. We may from time to time, because of a momentary or a short-term situation, go out there to do a little bit better job. Construction especially will help out from time to time. If they're getting a delivery and the delivery driver just stops in the road, usually one of the officers will come up behind and flash in the meantime, either telling them to hurry up or get out of the way or do something else. So, but if it's a bigger project, they have to have an MOT for how they're going to plan for traffic, and they'll have to have true flag person or signs and things of that nature. So we want to make sure that's happened so we don't have potential hazards or issues for pedestrians and vehicles.
So one thought is that if a project's going to take, say, 2 days or more, that will severely impact the use of A1A, that they hire one of our police people, a policeman, so that we can, they pay us for that coverage. Does that make any sense?
Maybe
You're not gonna do it.
with Chief Hartman, but I bet he's going to say he doesn't want to tie up his officers on traffic control.
I was thinking maybe it would help his budget. Okay.
But there may be a situation, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, the last point I was going to make was about the single biggest problem we have with construction is. Two. Okay. That's right. Well, I thought one was related to the other, but the whole thing with swales, that on the west side of A1A, pretty much a lot of the properties have done away with the swales and yet we can enforce. So we're kind of stuck now. And what is it that we can do to get swales and drainage or whatever on the west side of A1A?
So yeah, west side's better than the east side. And it's basically, it's going to be an incremental approach. So people always make improvements, or it tends to happen more often on the east side of A1A. The homeowners, as one would imagine, make improvements over time. When somebody buys a home, they want to change the driveway, put in new landscaping, change the structure, new irrigation. Whenever they go to do that, they have to then tell us how they're going to handle any of the drainage in that area and the work that they're doing by submitting a plan. So sometimes if they can't get a swale, there are other practices, drainage structures, French drains, things of that nature that they could include, and we'll make them include that to help alleviate some of that drainage on A1A. And some of the owners have done it on their own, some haven't, because we had no participation in the process. So at least now we can have that conversation, and if we need to impose it, but most people will do it if you ask. But if we don't know when they're going to do something, you can't ask them when they're done. So we're just trying to find a better way to systematically make these improvements and protect the right of way as we move forward.
Do we have an ordinance that deals with that or not?
We can kind of do it, but it's the smaller one-off projects that usually impact the drainage along A1A. Right now, we really don't have a landscaping, but some of the landscaping is pretty significant. Or if somebody just does the end of their driveway, does that really warrant a building permit? Not per se. We might be able to stretch and do it, but it usually makes building officials uncomfortable to get into driveway enlargements or repairs. So this will to get to those types of projects to ensure some of our runoff and drainage concerns are addressed. Like the 1 inch of runoff, we got to be able to accommodate in improvement.
That's not where I was going. I
Okay.
was thinking more about when sitting water becomes an issue. And who has to deal with it? And do we have anything in our code that would allow us to make people deal with it?
I like your idea, but I don't know.
This is probably another tool in the toolbox that makes it a little bit easier to get to that.
I mean, because just because we haven't done something in the past doesn't mean we can't do it going forward. You're not wedded to the past.
Yeah.
You're right. And I believe the team we have now deployed would be ensuring when projects are done. But if they don't require a permit and they just do it, we don't have that ability to participate, step in, and partner. I know it's hard for people to believe that that permitting is a partnership, but it really is to protect the overall community as well as the homeowner. So we could, but this is going to be a lot easier to get to those types of projects that don't traditionally require permits.
Well, but our people aren't really allowed to do plantings and things in the right of way, are they?
No,
Well,
But
drive
there
around.
are.
I know.
So maybe we need to deal with that.
Mayor?
certainly can have them removed if they're in the
Yeah.
right of way. Yes, Peggy.
Yes, sir. If this helps, in February of 2018, FDOT addressed the town going into the failed A1A referendum. Anyway, a fellow named Roberto Betancourt told the community there that every piece of work on A1A technically needed an FDOT permit, whether it's a driveway or plantings. And I don't know, maybe Ingrid or Marshall could answer, but he said that our town historically has not addressed that and gone through FDOT. Is that still a state law that they require a permit to do anything?
Boy, I hate to answer it with a yes and no, but yes and no.
Okay.
I've had that conversation with them. You do get a big permit from FDOT if you see like a fiber optic. They usually hold an FDOT permit, and they're mostly looking at traffic safety and coordination. That's about it.
Okay,
Now, they could impose driveway permits, and if they do, no one's looking at it, and they just say, yeah, go ahead.
I see.
They're not really, that's the problem we have with this, is we may have relied on them to do it. They don't have the resources or desire to do it, or are compelled to do it. And again, I don't envision this being an onerous process to obtain a permit, just to let us know exactly what you're doing and be sure that, one, you're not hitting our built infrastructure, you're not creating a drainage problem, and we know when you're going to be in the road right away working to, protect travel. So it's another point of contact with us with them. I don't see this being like a super expensive permit that takes 8 weeks to issue,
No.
anything like that. But it's more of bringing us into the conversation so we know exactly what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Peg, while you have the floor, it's all yours.
Okay, couple things. Thank you, Mayor. Regarding the drainage this is getting off the topic of undergrounded, but regarding the drainage on A1A, FDOT did put in swales and drain pipes many years ago. However, they take the retained water and dump it into the intercoastal. So that isn't always an optimal plan for the environment. I'm just pointing it out that they had installed several outflow pipes, dumping the water straight in instead of letting it filter through the land, which clears it of other biohazards. I just wondered if we should consider on the 811 that we require a sonar inspection rather than a visual. The difference is you can come out and say a visual, well, I don't think anything is located in this property. And in fact, it may not be marked in terms of undergrounded items from dating back to the 60s or 70s or older. But a visual inspection does not always do very well. So I think maybe Ingrid can answer that, or Marshall, if we should require an 811 sonar inspection.
Well, let us look into that. I'm not familiar enough to know that we can do that. And
Okay.
even part of the GIS systems, we'll have a lot more details to readily share with.
That's what I'm wondering too. Right.
Yeah, so we can look into that, give you some more information.
Okay, just as a point of example, a visual 811 call was made on a property and they said, yes, everything's fine, but not having pulled a sonar inspection, the builder severed a propane tank and
Lovely.
caused a shutdown of a neighborhood. So I wanted to point that out. Next, maybe not everyone on the commission is aware, but we already have surprise undergrounded wiring in my neighborhood. The north end of my street was undergrounded by a developer, and without permits, without notifying the city. Ed Soper had no idea at the time of it. And there were in fact ground strap wires snaking through the shrubs and the trees and across the street. And so I'm just underscoring the vast need for this this ordinance. It's very greatly needed. Recently, apparently the south end of Tranquility Drive also had undergrounded wires. I don't know how safe or efficient it is to have wires snake from the high poles down through conduits and then been sunken and through conduits in the ground and then back up again at another property. I was told that it requires a homeowner permit also to underground wires in front of their property. If we could add that to the list of what ifs. And that's it for me.
Okay, Peg, thanks.
Thanks, Mayor.
Got it. How long ago were these underground wires placed underground when these homes were developed?
Sure. On North Intracoastal Drive, about 2015 or 16. And it only became apparent when everyone on the south end of the street lost internet and the north end was up and running. And so luckily the neighbors on the north end of the street allowed the south end people on call and whatnot for business to work out of their house for the afternoon. And then Tranquility, I believe Tranquility was in the recent couple of years.
Got it. Thanks, Peg.
Thank you.
Greg?
Thanks, Mayor. Just a few questions for Ingrid. I think she's still on. The right-of-ways, what are the sizes of the right-of-ways? Obviously, there's an A1A right-of-way, and then there's also right-of-ways for the side streets, correct or no?
Yes, 100 on A1A, 50, I believe, on our side streets.
And that's the total, so the 50 on the side streets is 25 feet from the center of the street?
And the
or-
line, yes.
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 Okay, got it. What happens to homeowners that have things in the right of way at the moment that were done either previously by contractors or done by themselves?
They're just gonna have to remove them. Right, you almost got away with that. That's a good question. Maybe, we'll have to put a little thought to that. It's a good question. It depends on the scope and scale of it. If it's something that could simply be moved, when they pull a permit, we'd ask them to move it. If it's something bigger, long-term, that's something we'll have to take a look at. Do you have any kinds of structures you're thinking about that are out there?
You have to have discovery first. That is, where is it that somebody has something that is underground that we don't know about that is a problem? And the only time you find out about it is when you lose your internet, right?
Right.
Well, I guess this could also be not just underground, but couldn't it be on the surface as well?
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
So I think we need to think
Question.
pretty carefully about that.
I agree.
I'm all in favor of having things carefully and cautiously done for new things that are going forward. I am not in favor of a witch hunt to go trace people to go
Yeah.
get permits for stuff that's already been done.
Of course.
What's an example of something on the surface?
Bushes,
Mailboxes.
Bushes, a mailbox. I mean, I
Knee
don't know.
a
walls.
light post. Sometimes people put up these lamps in front of their homes on a post.
I think there's always compromise that can be reached. You know, the big thing we want to do is one, protect our underground assets, which I think even the resident that's pulling a permit would agree with. The other is to make some type of improvement to drainage. And if you can accommodate both while keeping what you have, I think there can be a win-win in there. But it might be on a case basis.
Very good.
Maybe we need to look at that in the ordinance, that if they don't like our decision, can they appeal it to somebody in this situation? I don't know.
Yeah, the one thing we have to be careful of is not to be selectively enforcing. And I agree, you know, we don't want to hunt there either.
I mean,
I
this,
mean,
this
part-
usually,
What else? Anything
this
else?
usually only becomes an issue when the town is seeking to utilize the right of way. So if you're doing a project, expanding a road, and then all of a sudden people that have built things or hedges have grown up, that's when the issue is. And so I agree with what the vice mayor said. You want to be diligent going forward. And if you
Right.
see somebody starting to put something up, you let them know they're in the right of way. But for stuff that's already there, you keep your fingers crossed and hope that you don't have a project, because you know, whoever's item you're moving, they're going to be as mad as a hornet. Even though they're in your right of way. It's like, no, I've been here for 20 years with that flamingo, you know, my pink flamingo that I had put up a long time ago.
Not gonna be Yeah,
Mayor?
yeah, sure, Peggy.
Yes, to work off of Greg's point, I believe we have a couple of ordinances that do address the safety of drivers of the right of way. I think the main point of a right of way being kept clear is so that a driver in emergent situation can actually traverse the grassy area. For example, there are people who have put out these spikes and cones and things to keep construction off their grass. Some of them are permissible, others are not. And then the structures and the extensive shrubbery also is considered and covered in an ordinance in terms of the line of sight for driving and traveling and in turning in corners. And I agree with Greg that certainly a lot of the innocuous things should be looked at and grandfathered in, or shall we say, not grandfathered anymore, shall we say, made an exception for past in the past.
Oh, I agree with that. I think other than something like having somebody trim bushes or trim hedges, where you're not making them take it out, but you're making them lower it a little bit, that should be okay.
Yes.
And if somebody starts to do any kind of changes, they do anything really, then you can enforce whatever you want at that point. But I would not go up and down the streets, and handing out summonses.
No, we're all in agreement.
Precise.
Yes.
Definitely not. We're going to send Ingrid.
Busy lady.
Good point.
Okay. Ingrid, I think this is a great start. Thank you. And I believe we're all in agreement. We should send it on to the planning board for review.
Yes.
Oh, do we need a motion on this, Marshall?
That would be good. And if you had any specific parameters outside of this general conversation, like you want to see it back in 4 months or something, set that timeline and we can work through that, 5 months, 2 months, whatever it is.
Okay. I think we want it back ASAP. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
Okay.
we want them to review it at their next meeting and send it back with their recommendations at the end of that meeting. I don't see any reason that it should take any time beyond that.
Right.
They might need a couple of meetings if they have some issues or changes they want to see. So it might take a couple of meetings, but you want them to commence the work on it immediately. And time is of the essence, so they keep on working it until they're done.
Then might I suggest that it be sent to them in advance of the meeting with a request that they come to the meeting prepared with their remarks and ready to discuss it.
Great.
Okay.
Okay? Is a note required for that? Or can that be?
I guess it could be the motion to send it to the commission is sending this to the planning board for review and recommendation.
Okay, that's the motion. Need a second.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We need a first and then a second.
I was summarizing the mayor's motion.
So the mayor made the first motion. Okay, that's for the record. Okay, thank you.
Keep us honest. Well done.
Manager, just a quick question. On right of way, I thought I heard Vice Mayor say 25 feet from the center line of A1A.
Side street,
No.
side streets,
Side
streets.
streets.
Okay, so from A1A, how much is it?
50.
50,
50
from
feet
center
from the
line.
center line.
50.
50. All right, very good.
And we'll
You would
clarify
You'd be
that too in the
amazed at how
presentation.
many people have things in there. 50 feet is a good distance.
Yeah, I was actually thinking some of these condominiums, how close they are with car checks or with from fence to,
A lot of it is shrubbery that's
yeah,
grown.
but it's mostly, I don't, shrubbery is between the sidewalk and A1A as an example.
Correct, yeah.
And that's possibly where the issue is. On the other hand, it does add to the aesthetics of the town, as well as maybe some minor protection for the pedestrians. But I think that is a source of negotiation.
Yeah, one of the problems, John, as you know, because you're a bike rider also, it narrows the bike lane, which is.
Right. You're right. Gee, right?
Narrows
Okay.
the bike lane.
Can we move on? Any more comments on that?
No,
Next is, we're seeking approval for me to execute the agreement with AT&T for $46,080 for 3 years of internet service. This increases our internet from 100 megabytes to 250. We are currently, I believe, with AT&T. This just brings us into the modern and faster service.
Yep.
I'll turn it over to Marshall if anybody has any questions about it.
I'm going to ask Teresa to pop on and give us a little walkthrough. This is, she's kind of on-staff IT person, so I'll let her walk us through what we have as a contract currently and where we're going. So.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So yes, as the mayor just stated, he is absolutely correct. Currently, we are with AT&T as our internet and phone service provider. We currently have 100 megabits per second. And with the increase in demand of technology, with conducting the Zoom meetings and everything, moving over to internet-based, we see the need to increase the service to 250 megabits per second. And that would be distributed throughout the whole town hall complex. So that would include town hall, the building department, as well as the library. And I'm here to answer any questions.
would
Open
that
for
include
anybody?
phone reception?
No, unfortunately, it wouldn't.
But that's really.
John,
that's
you get one, John.
No, I get 3. Even if I only ask 2. So I guess this is my business negotiation instinct. I have to believe that AT&T would like to see this happen, right? I mean, it's more money for them. It's a contract. It's a 3-year commitment. Yet I have my private phone is AT&T. As I learned on Cape Cod when I was at the hotel, thank goodness I had a town phone, which is Verizon, because that's speak to you in the last meeting we had. So AT&T, I went to AT&T in Delray, and I said, you know, Highland Beach coverage is just terrible. And they said, well, there's no interest in putting up, you know, a more broadcast devices. So what do you need to do to make that happen? Well, we need to have the town advise us, and you know, if there's an interest, otherwise we probably won't do it. So my question is, number one, what can we do to incent AT&T to give some kind of improvement to the coverage for cell phones in Highland Beach? And you know, it's not like, it's 3 miles long, folks.
Right.
That much of an investment on the part of AT&T to make a difference. And we're trying to also use them and endorse them for both cell as well as internet. That's number one. Number two, what is the plan for AT&T with 5G? Because as I tried to explain to people well before I was interested in joining the council, 5G is not something you can put underground. That you have poles to put the broadcasters on. So it made no sense to me to start tearing down these, you know, power lines or power poles. So the question is, what is the plan for AT&T on 5G? How could that also affect this? Because 5G, as I understand it, wirelessly will give you as good, if not better, speed and connectivity as fiber. It's the next generation. That's the 5th generation. Now, it's not clear to me. I haven't seen the latest specs from AT&T. I did see them from other the vendors supplying the equipment. So I think those are 3 issues. One is the internet. You're trying to get faster speed. Number 2, we're trying to combine also coverage for the cell, all from AT&T, as well as what their plan is for 5G. Now, I don't want to make this too complicated because all we want to do is get increased speed. But if you're having a discussion, you have a little leverage that might help us with the other 2. Does that make sense?
Okay, absolutely. So one, 5G, I haven't asked that question, so I can definitely go back to our representative and see what is the plan for 5G. With regard to the cell phone service, that's something that's completely different from the data internet service as well as the phone service with the fiber. I know I believe it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we were in conversations with AT&T regarding cell phone boosters. And the only thing that they had at that time was not sufficient enough to improve the cell service throughout the whole town. It would just be something that we'd be able to use here on Town Hall, and it would only go out a certain amount of feet. So it wouldn't expand for the whole town. And I do know when we were doing a little bit of research that we do have a cell phone tower. We have a cell phone tower for Sprint on the water tower. So the IT consultant was working with the police department because they use air cards, which are Verizon, and then our town phones are Sprint. And we were finding when they left the town hall complex, they weren't getting adequate Sprint service. When they came back on town hall, they weren't getting Verizon service. It was something to do with that tower that's on the Sprint tower that's on the water tower. So I can definitely look into the cell phone boosters to see what AT&T may have to offer now that can increase the service throughout town, as well as their 5G plan.
So, and I think that's kind of it's a bundle as far as I see of capability for AT&T to take advantage, given we're kind of forced to go to Verizon and Sprint. AT&T, wake up, let's see what you can do for us. Anyways, I just think it's leverage that you might want to pursue. And especially if 5G is going to be, as effective, fast, data rates are going to be really excellent on a level that, will blow your mind wirelessly. The question then is, do we want to be in a 3-year contract?
Nope.
I just have to, ask that. So that's my 3 in 1.
Okay, when does our current contract expire?
November.
Oh, so, okay, let's answer some of these questions first.
Absolutely.
Answers and bring it back to us, and we'll make a decision at the next meeting.
Mayor,
Yes.
I had understood from some friends of mine in East Boca that they were installing some 5G towers in East Boca.
Oh, interesting.
And we-
AT&T was.
Yes, sir. And we have a resident in town who works in that field, and we can certainly ask him if he has any updated information from an industry standpoint.
Well, possibly you could tie that individual in with Teresa. She'd have a contact.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Thanks, Peggy.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah, let's run it down and see where we stand.
Great.
Thanks for bringing it up, John.
Yep. Thanks, John.
Okay. Let's move on to Marshall is going to ask to send a letter to the governor to extend our ability to do these Zoom meetings. And then he and I were discussing it, and he came up with an idea. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, Glenn.
Just wanted to let you know, the governor just did extend it till October 1st, but obviously this is an ongoing issue.
Right. But in our discussions, a brainstorm came up. And I have to credit Marshall for it. And that was
Yay.
not to ask for October 1st or even November 1st, but just ask for the ability to at any time have a Zoom commission meeting at our will. Because you never know down the road, somebody might be traveling, I might be away. The vice mayor may have a cold, not want to come in.
All right. Bingo.
Just wanted to see if you were paying attention there.
I am. I was thinking hurricane evacuation, but
Yeah. That too, absolutely.
And even though we could still have the meeting in chambers and have a quorum, it'd be just much easier just to plain and simple have a Zoom. So what we would like to do is have Marshall send that letter on our behalf, requesting the ability to have Zoom meetings at our will. So if everybody's in agreement, we would like to do that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Great idea.
Yes, Glenn?
On a longer term basis, you might want to consider engaging with the League of Cities, Florida League of Cities, to change the legislation, because the governor's authority to allow us to do this only lasts as long as the state of emergency lasts. Just some background, when this all started, the governor asked the Attorney General for an opinion on this, and the Attorney General gave the opinion that as long as the emergency lasts, he has this authority. So whenever COVID finally goes away, that authority will disappear. So I like the idea of saying, make it more permanent, but the real solution is the legislature. I think the Florida League is already moving in that direction, but certainly lending our support to change the legislation be the best long-term solution.
Great.
We have those
Okay.
parties copied on the letter, so they would be getting it. So Caruso, Rader, Weinroth, I know Sittig just retired, so Florida League of Cities, we'll get a couple of these things. They're all part of this letter package, so everybody's gonna get it.
Great.
So,
Be very beneficial, and it's, you know, it's a shame that it took the pandemic to make us realize that we should and could be doing this. But let's move on.
it's a question.
Yeah, sure, John.
So the governor does not have authority to extend it based on the Constitution. If there's no emergency, is that what I'm hearing?
That's
correct.
He does not. The state law that's been passed, and only during this emergency did the Attorney General give him an opinion that he has the power during the state of emergency to suspend various laws, including this one.
All right. And so we need a COVID-21 is what we're saying, right?
No more COVID. We just need a permanent change in the law.
How about biting your tongue there, young man?
Mayor,
Yes, Beck.
if I could suggest, in addition to copying our elected officials and county commissioner and whatnot, October 1 starts the new budget year, and also the session for the state legislature will begin. And I suggest asking our Representative Caruso and whomever replaces our Senator Rader as he's retiring, but ask Mr. Caruso to consider putting this before the House. He could pose it as a bill. He would need to know now in the next 6 months.
For sure.
And I know, I just want to give you credit, Mayor, because you brought this up before you even took office, that it would be a benefit when you were on a board, that you would be able to do whatever you need to do and then weigh in from out of town as well as your members.
You have a great memory, Peggy.
Oh, it was your idea and Marshall's idea separately.
Okay. We just want to get things done, that's all.
Yes, sir, I
Right.
agree.
Okay, on to the next. Public comments. Do we have any public comments? I would guess not.
No.
I'm seeing you shaking your head. Okay. We'll move on then to commission reports and comments. John, do you have anything to bring before the commission?
No, I don't, thankfully.
Okay. Evelyn?
Nothing today.
Okay. Peggy?
I have something really cool.
We need it.
Really cool. A resident of Highland Beach, part-time, used to be full-time, has been appointed as U.S. Consul General to Bermuda.
Oh,
His name is Leandro Rizzuto, and just they're friends of ours. I will copy Marshall on this. We just received it in the mail yesterday. But it is just a really nice touch to have someone in our community at that level of stature at government. So I wanted to share that with everyone, and perhaps we could send a letter by the mayor.
there you go.
Congratulations.
Absolutely. Send it.
Got to keep you busy, Doug.
Okay,
So I wanted to share that.
Nice.
That's it for me. Thank you all.
very nice. Thank you. Greg?
No comments.
Okay, back to me. I really don't have much to say other than thank you all for the hard work and participation, putting all these priorities together. Now we can follow up on Marshall and see what the hell he's doing all week long.
And again, just to confirm, Marshall's going to put that together in a finalized list for us to review at the next meeting.
Right, correct. So if anybody has any second thoughts, you have your notes, and we can always make an adjustment to it, obviously. I'll move on to Glenn. Glenn, any comments?
No, my only comment was going to be about the governor's extended order, which I already made.
Okay, thank you. Marshall.
Yeah, I got a few things. Thank you. As you know, we're knee deep in budget season, maybe waist deep at this point. This Thursday, the FAB will take a quick look at the complete budget as recommended for acceptance by the commission. And then they will review that, maybe pass along recommendations or concurrence with the budget as drafted. The other thing that they'll be looking at is healthcare, which they'll give recommendations to you. I have shared that with you, but I want to share with those that are in the viewing audience and watching that we got some good rates yet again this year. We're only looking at a 5% or 2%, 3% increase on our two healthcare plans and 0 increases on dental and vision, short-term, long-term, and other types of secondary employee paid benefits. So healthcare is good news. So our budget remains strong as we move through this, and the FAB will be taking a look at those items. Also want to note that we didn't talk much about, but Ingrid did bring it to our attention that we're up for our 10-year water supply plan update with the South Florida Water Management District, and it comes with a series of comp plan amendments. She's working on that. It's got a draft over to the South Florida Water Management District. And then that'll eventually come to the commission for review. So the team's working on making sure those items are in place. I sent a little Florida water sewer rate evaluation where you can see what the state rates are. I'm going to kick over a couple of quick table charts for you to look at as a preview to our water and sewer rates study, which we should be getting a final copy here within the next several business days. But I'm going to send away a look at our first look at the rates for you all to take a quick look at and before we release the full document now. So that's good news for us that we still, even with increases, we still have relatively low rates from there. Also, kudos to Janelle Thompson, our administrative specialist in the clerk's office. She has graduated from Florida Atlantic University. So congratulations to her with getting her bachelor's degree and doing so as a young mother. So that was very proud of her here in so, other than that, you know what I'm working on, all the other items you discussed today, a lot of those things that are commenced, we're full go. So other than that, we're in good shape. Collective bargaining, we should have some stuff ready for ratification, hopefully to the commission shortly. So our partnership with our employees remains strong and was a very good experience and of nature amongst all parties. So I look forward to bringing those things to you shortly. That's it.
Okay, thank you. One thing I did forget, Teresa, if you're still on there, want to thank you for all the assistance today on getting all that information up there and moving it around so quickly. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you very much. And that's about it. So
Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry, I know I've already had my turn, but this is important. I wanted to pass this along. We're getting 5G in December. This December, I just heard back from, yes, sir. I just heard back from my contact, my neighbor and friend. It's expected in December, so that changes our outlook here today.
Aha.
Very good.
Excellent.
Way to go, John.
That may open up some opportunities.
Well, I knew it was important.
Now, John, are you going to foot the bill for us?
He'll do the wiring.
I expect Teresa will negotiate this with such a strong position that she'll get it for free.
If it can be done, she will do it.
Well, that's only 1 month from the end of this contract until possibly installation begins.
Right.
Yeah, so obviously, these things aren't easy. There's always going to be twists and turns, but Teresa, it's all yours. If you can put something together, that'd be wonderful. Okay, thank you all. 3:34, we will adjourn.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Great day. Stay safe.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.